So Sarah Marty will address the state of the community theater in Madison. Madison supports a broad array of theater companies, from Encore Studio for the Performing Arts and Madison Theater Guild to Four Seasons Theater and Forward Theater. And regardless of the venue or the budget, all share similar challenges and opportunities. Changing economic realities force us to re-examine the ways of doing things. What may have been possible or worked 20 years ago, for example, may no longer be viable. And what does this mean to be a sustainable arts organization today? How do we serve loyal supporters and also engage new audiences? How do we keep tickets affordable while maintaining the quality of theater that showcases Madison talent on stage and backstage? Sarah is the Director of Arts Programs for the University of Wisconsin-Madison Continuing Studies, teaches arts entrepreneurship at the UW School of Business, and is a faculty affiliate at the UW Arts Institute. She's a trained musician, stage manager, producing artistic director for Four Seasons Theater, produces large-scale campus events like the UW Varsity Band Show and the 2013 visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to the Overture Center for the Arts. A job like that, this is going to be an interesting talk.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. As I look across the room at my colleagues in the arts, I'm humbled. I see friends from Madison Opera, Madison Savoyards, Forward Theater, Four Seasons Theater, so many people who do so much good work in the community. Dane Arts, UW Arts Institute, Overture Center. I'd love to give them a round of applause before I begin because we're all part of a fantastic arts community in Madison. I'd also like to thank Jane Coster. She is a jewel. You have no idea the patience that this woman holds. She's the person who works with those of us who are going to be coming and speaking and helps us with our PowerPoint and makes sure you know where you're going to park and is incredibly gracious and kind the entire time. So thank you to Jane. And one last thank you to Elaine Mishler, who played the piano prior to the program. A fantastic pianist, wonderful musician. I'm not sure where she is in the audience, but thank you, Elaine, for sharing your music. Earlier this afternoon, we sang a rousing rendition of Give My Regards to Broadway. I'd like to follow up with lyrics from Irving Berlin's Standard that's become an anthem for those of us in the theater community. Most of you will know the words. There's no business like show business. Like no business I know. Everything about it is appealing. Everything the traffic will allow. Nowhere can you get that happy feeling when you're stealing that extra bow. There's no business like show business. There really isn't. I've spent the last 20 years of my life working in the theater community in Madison, starting out, as so many have, with Nancy Thoreau at CTM. A true legend in her time, and the ripple effect of the work that she did is unparalleled in the theater community, both regionally and probably nationally. My work backstage and on stage, my background in arts education eventually led me to a degree from the Beaux Center for Arts Administration from the University of Wisconsin School of Business, and to co-founding Four Seasons Theater in 2005. Now we'll test the clicker. Oh, there we go. My work in the theater community ranges from terms as a board member for Madison Theater Guild, as the general manager with our wonderful Forward Theater Company, and to heading up Four Seasons Theater as the producing artistic director. Along the way, I've been lucky to work with so many talented people. There's no people like show people. And to be part of a vibrant art scene that offers so much to the Madison community. At the National Community Theaters Directors Conference, it's a conference that I've directed for the past decade. It's been held biannually for 30 years at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Directors from companies across the United States meet to discuss current trends and challenges in the field. We have companies with budgets as small as $25,000 and as large as $3 million. Regardless of the size of the budget, the challenges are the same. And so is the commitment to providing a high-quality experience for everybody involved. In 2013, I was asked by the City of Madison to be part of a performing arts task force. They wanted to look at what Madison brings to our community in comparison to shining star communities across the country. So we did a comparison with Boise, with Austin, and with Portland. And what we found was that Madison, to use a boxing term, or a wrestling term, was really punching way above its weight. The number of offerings we had here was just absolutely phenomenal in comparison to communities that were much, much larger. We had much more diversity in our dance scene, in our music scene, our theater scene. It was really eye-opening, and it showed the great level of support from philanthropists in the community, and also for community involvement. At last count, there were over 35 companies producing theater in the Madison area. Over. I probably missed a few. I did a triple count this past week, and there's probably 2 new ones that were founded in the last 2 days. Everything from Encore Studio for the Performing Arts and Madison Savoyards to Four Seasons Theater and Forward Theater. It's okay if you can't read all the words up there. These are the theater companies that I was able to pull together. 37 in total. Just showing a graphic representation of the huge number of people that are producing theater in Madison. Today I was asked to present on the state of community theater in Madison. Before delving in, I wanted to share the definition used by the National American Association of Community Theaters. Community theater is theater that is made by, with, and for the community. It's theater that showcases local talent on stage and backstage, and is responsive to the community in which it exists. So this is the definition I'll be working from today during my talk. A thriving and vibrant arts community is diverse by nature and offers a wide range of opportunities for those on stage, backstage, and in the audience. To go back to Irving Berlin, the audience that lifts you when you're down. Theater goers have a veritable smorgasbord of options in our community. Middle school and high school productions, youth theater, college shows, non-equity, equity productions. There's so many opportunities to be part of the arts in Madison. Some want to see critically acclaimed scripts, fresh from Broadway. This is a picture from Forward Theater's fantastic production of Red with Jimmy DeVita. Others are interested in lesser-known works. Music Theater of Madison's beautiful production of Bonnie and Clyde a few years ago at the Bartell. Some enjoy flashy Broadway numbers like Chorus Line with Middleton Players Theater. Others prefer quiet dialogue that reflects on our world today. This was an original production by local playwright Dan Myers called Finding Human at Broome Street. Some want to see stars or stars in the making up on stage. Tom Wopat and Allie Foss in Four Seasons Theater's South Pacific. Others are interested in seeing their friends, their family, and their neighbors doing what they love to do. Sun Prairie Civic Theater's The Addams Family. Lots of zombies on stage in case you're wondering about the makeup. The costumes, the scenery, the makeup, the props. Here's a photo of Verona Area Community Theater's scene shop and rehearsal space. VACT, like many other companies, is 100% volunteer run. Board members, cast members, long-term volunteers, families, kids, parents, high schoolers, middle schoolers, everybody pitches in to produce the show. They're there painting sets, they're building, they're creating the programs, they're selling the tickets, they're on stage, they're in the orchestra, they're working backstage, all for the love of theater and for how it brings them together as a community to celebrate each other and to celebrate what they can do as a whole. Some theater companies provide a paid gig for technical theater artists to bring their talents to Madison audiences, and many lie somewhere in between, where they might rely on both volunteer and paid labor to create the world of each production. Regardless, for every actor that you see on stage, there's probably at least 15 people backstage who are there to make that production happen, often unheralded, often unseen. Backstage talent is clearly visible on Madison stages. This is a photo from Chris Dunham's beautiful scenic design for CTM's Anne of Green Gables. It was an absolutely stunning production in the Playhouse, and he's one of our top-notch designers, and he actually teaches at Edgewood College here in town. They also wanted to share a photo from University Theater, University of Wisconsin-Madison's college program, their fall production of the Beaux Strategem, with fantastic costume design by graduate student Erin Levi and Joe Varga, scenic design. So just stunning work all around. Regardless of affiliation of the theater company, we can see a true commitment and love of craft on stage. Back to Irving. Standing out in front on opening nights. Madison theater companies provide hundreds of opportunities each year on stage. Chances for those who've never trod the boards, who want to have their first shot in being theatrical productions, for those who've been working for years towards a leading role to take that leap, for those who've chosen acting as a career on the stage. Our theater community has so much to be proud of. Our high schools and youth theater programs continue to provide valuable experiences for young people, much like the House Theater, which is run by Katrina Brunner from Edgewood High School. And we have a huge range of collegiate programs: UW-Madison University Theater, UW-Madison University Opera, Edgewood College Theater Department, and Madison College Performing Arts, among them. They all provide educational opportunities for majors and non-majors alike, further cementing the notion that theater can be a part of your life regardless of your chosen profession, while supporting the fact that you can actually have a career in the arts. This is a stunning picture of the Crucible, a recent production by Edgewood College. Scenic design by our friend Chris Dom. The reason I'm sharing this information on high schools and colleges is that the people who are teaching our young people are part of our community of theater professionals. Those very folks: Katrina Brunner, Chris Dunham, Jamie Pitt, Paul Millish. Every day they're in our schools bringing drama, good drama, not bad drama, to our young people. And every night they're in rehearsal or they're working on the next scenic design, and they're really a huge contribution of how we make things happen in Madison. And seeing your name, your billing, up there in lights, I'd like to share just a few hometown talent does good stories with you. We'll start with Brian Cowing. Brian started his career as a child actor with CTM, in many productions with both CTM and also with First United Methodist Church. While participating in the excellent drama program at Middleton High School, he continued that work, and he also became a wonderful cast member for many productions with Four Seasons Theater. In addition, as a high school student, he served as an assistant choreographer. This is literally unheard of. Went off to college at OCU, where he performed and directed, and he returned in the summers to direct and choreograph for Four Seasons, working on South Pacific, She Loves Me, and our fantastically received production of Les Miserables a few years ago. And Brian just got back from the national tour of Annie. So, pretty fantastic young man. Next up is Abby Nichols. Abby participated in music and drama program at Memorial High School under Jamie Pitt, and several productions with CTM. While in college, she landed the role of Grace on the national tour of Annie, a different national tour a few years ago. She's worked professionally with many companies since moving back to Madison, including CTM and Four Seasons, where she most recently was seen as Clara Johnson in The Life of Piazza. In addition, she's dedicated her life to being a teacher, working with young singers and young actors with CTM and in her own studio. And our last example of good hometown person done well is Christian Smith Kotlarek. Many of you may have seen Christian on the Overture stage last week, starring as Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. A Wisconsin native, he sang in many operas and productions while a student at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and has since returned for roles with Madison Opera and as Booth in Assassins with FST. All three credit their success not only to extracurricular participation in school and youth theater programs, but also to their experience participating in and growing through community theater right here in Madison. And this is just three stories of what I'm sure are hundreds of people who've grown as artists in our community and gone on to amazing careers, and also returned to continue to water the ground where they grew. Back to Berlin. The opening where your heart beats like a drum. Perhaps the spotlight shines most brightly on your friends, your neighbors, and your colleagues who dedicated hours to arts participation. Perhaps as a performer for 3 hours a night, 5 days a week, after work, in the evenings, maybe as a carpenter or a scenic painter, helping to get the set ready to go, could be as a designer or a director, or as a volunteer or board member helping provide the resources needed to make things happen. Your friends and neighbors are a huge part of this theater community. Madison has so much to be proud of. There's no business like show business. Here's the view from the stage of the Union Theater. This is what you see when you're out there performing, except it's full of friends and families and smiling faces, hopefully. Regardless of venue or budget, we all share similar challenges. I teach Arts Enterprise and Arts Entrepreneurship course for the UW-Madison School of Business. My class is made up of art, theater, music, dance, and design studies majors, along with a large majority of students who are not majoring in the arts but want to bring their own field to the creative sector. In addition to learning about the nuts and bolts of arts as business, we also look at trends in the field and have conversations about why things are happening and what the future may hold. We may not have the answers, but we will ask the questions. Changing economic realities force us to re-examine the traditional ways that we do things. What may have worked 20 years ago may no longer be viable. The traditional nonprofit model we've all been working with for decades is based on 60% earned income, 20% grants and foundation funding, and 20% individual and business donations. So 60, 20, 20. 60 from ticket sales, 20% grants and foundations, 20% individual and business donations. Government cuts to arts funding mean there are fewer dollars available to granting organizations like the Wisconsin Arts Board, Dane Arts, and Madison Arts Commission. According to the recently released, yesterday, study by the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, Wisconsin is now 48th in the nation in arts spending by choice, spending just 14 cents per capita. Let's put that in perspective. In contrast, American Samoa is at $1.38 per capita. They rank 17th. And Guam is at $2.22 per capita, ranking 10th. Our neighbor, Minnesota, which we like to refer to as the land of unicorns and rainbows, is number 1 in the nation, spending $6.26 per capita on the arts. We are at 14 cents in Wisconsin. While the traditional funding mix may work in Minnesota and American Samoa and Guam, it doesn't work in Wisconsin. Shifting priorities for foundations and businesses, many of which are now doing good work of another kind by supporting nonprofits in other sectors, have also changed the equation in regards to corporate support for theater and for the arts. Companies can't reasonably expect individual donations to increase at the rate that the other levels available to support are decreasing. As you know, cultivating individual donations requires sustained relationships built on trust and mutual interest. We can't just suddenly expect those numbers to exponentially increase in a short period of time. Another stress on the system is the sheer number of theater companies. We are all competing for limited resources. In addition to less grant funding being available and more companies applying for a smaller piece of the pie, we're competing for performance space, for rehearsal space, for a place to build our sets, for places to put the costumes together, to store the props. There just isn't a lot of space. We have beautiful venues. The Overture Center is absolutely fantastic. The Bartell is wonderful. The Union Theater. But there's so many companies, and there's only so many days in the year, and only so many hours in the day, and only so many people to do things. We're competing for local talent, for designers, for theater technicians, for directors, for carpenters, for actors, for musicians, for volunteers, for ushers, for box office staff. Many of us try to work together when we're scheduling our seasons. We call each other up. We go to lunch. Hey, what are you thinking about? What are you guys thinking about? Oh, we're maybe going to do this show. What do you think? And we actually talk to each other before we announce our seasons so that we can make an effort to provide opportunities for more actors, to have less competition in terms of theme and authors, playwrights. We do the best we can. We try. This is a wonderful photo of, I believe, Aaron Ball's scenic design for Strollers Theater. This was a production that was at the Bartell this fall. They sold out most of the run. It was really wonderful for their company, who's coming back from the brink financially. And I think it's a beautiful example of a 100% volunteer-run theater company doing an incredible job. I mean, look at that scenic design, it's stunning. Anybody would be proud to have that on stage. Looking ahead, back to Berlin, smiling as you watch the benches filling, the closing when the customers don't come. We're also competing for audience. On any given weekend, there are at least 4 productions running somewhere in the city. The Bartell, the Play Circle, the Wisconsin Union Theater Shannon Hall, the Playhouse, the Capitol Theater Overture Hall, at the Mitchell, the Hemsley, the Edgewood College space. music hall, in addition to touring shows and acts at Overture and Wisconsin Union Theater. People can only go to so much. And how many of you have looked at the calendar and gone, man, I'm really sorry I'm gonna have to miss that, I have to pick one, right? Happens to all of us. Compounding these issues is the changing media landscape. We've seen massive shifts in the past 10 years in print, in radio, in television, and online. As finances have changed for newspapers and other media challenges, the number of arts positions has decreased, where we once had full-time dedicated arts writers and reporters. Remember that? Right, that was amazing. Now we have a small group of dedicated freelancers covering a much broader range of subjects, with fewer opportunities for preview articles and show reviews in print. We've lost a way of communicating with our audiences. Audiences we need in the short term for ticket sales, because of that 60-20-20 change, and in the long term as loyal patrons to keep the arts community vibrant and healthy. As media channels struggle to find their own way, prices for advertising have risen sharply, and arts organizations are no longer able to invest in marketing. How many times as an arts organization have you heard, oh, I didn't see it in the paper? Or people are, oh, well, we wanted to wait for the review before we come see the show. There isn't going to be a review. There's no one to write it. Our next company, this is the Playhouse. View from the stage. I thought you might like to see that in case you haven't been out there before. This is Encore Studio for Performing Arts. They are a professional theater that provides paid employment for people with disabilities. Their staff works with the folks who are part of Encore to write the shows, to direct the shows, to costume the shows, to build the set, to make the props, and to perform. And they're paid for their work. It's a fantastic organization with Kelsey Schoenheier. Highly recommend looking into their work. They're definitely worthy of your support. Back to Berlin. The headaches, the heartaches, the backaches, and the flops. Ouch. I'm going to revisit some questions that were part of the introduction. What it means to be a sustainable arts organization is changing. If the inputs are shifting, the way you do things will need to change as well. Organizations are asking themselves tough questions. Yes, these are questions we've asked for years, but they now have a much more pressing meaning. How do you create a season that will be artistically challenging and interesting for those on stage and backstage, while also selling enough tickets to cover your expenses? How do we serve our loyal supporters and also engage new audiences? How do we keep tickets affordable while maintaining the quality theater that showcases Madison talent on stage and backstage? And how do you continue to thrive as an organization in an increasingly restricted environment? This is a photo from young Shakespeare players' recent production of Romeo and Juliet. Market tendencies push towards the extremes. Bigger budget organizations balanced by tiny volunteer-run organizations with little support for the middle. Sounds a little bit like our current economy. It's incredibly important that we support work across the spectrum. As our state funding does not support the traditional nonprofit arts model, a number of theater companies and arts organizations are responding to this by collaborating in new ways through partnerships and shared resources. Here's a photo from A Midsummer Night's Dream, a co-production by Theater Lila and CTM. Theater Lila and CTM partnered last year, and Theater Lila is partnering with Bronzeville Theater from Milwaukee on a co-production that opens in Promenade Hall in February. Four Seasons Theater and MTM, who both produce professional musical theater in Madison, have lengthy conversations prior to programming our seasons. We talk about the casting demands for each. If we're doing Guys and Dolls that has a lot of men, they decided they would do 9, which is almost all women. More opportunities for more actors. We're holding joint auditions in February along with Bower City Theater so we can cast our shows at the same time and make it easier for actors to be involved because they can come to one audition and be seen by 3 different companies. Four Seasons has also partnered with University Theater for scenic builds for the past 2 summers. For Kiss Me Kate in 2014, which reopened the Union Theater, and for Guys and Dolls in 2015. Providing a valuable work experience for undergraduate and graduate students in a venue that's significantly different than the Mitchell or the Hensley they typically work in. Staff at Overture work with producers to share labor and reduce costs whenever possible. They look at the show that is currently in the theater, they look at the show that's coming in next, and they compare notes. Could we leave the light plot in the air? Can you share the light plot? Can we leave the stage in the position that it's in because it looks like you guys are basically going to have a similar set up? Are there things we can do to reduce your costs and to save everybody time and money and work together to make this a more sustainable enterprise? CTM maintains a terrific scene and costume shop, and they collaborate with Forward Theater to work together to grow the technical theater pool of carpenters, scenic painters, and electricians available to work on their own productions in the Playhouse and for other companies and venues throughout the year. The participating theater companies at the Bard's Hell have worked with their foundation board to hire an executive director who now manages the building, 2 theater spaces, runs a shared box office, which was a huge commitment by all of the PTCs, and generates joint monthly marketing newsletters and initiatives. In the broader arts sector, Madison Youth Choirs and Madison Ballet have shared office and rehearsal space for several years and are now looking at a potential larger collaboration with other youth arts organizations. As we look ahead, each theater company needs to ask ourselves and our community 3 big questions. And defining that community as those backstage, on stage, and in the audience. Who are we? What do we do? And why do we matter? As I look across the room, I see community leaders who made a commitment to Madison, to the quality of those of us who live here, through supporting education, supporting social services, supporting the arts, and so much more. We need your help in grappling with these 3 big questions and the difficult conversations they may generate. Are there too many theater companies for a town this size? Are we each unique in what we bring to the Madison community? Or are we duplicating efforts and offerings? Are the things we do complementary to another organization? Should we plow forward on our own? Should we merge? Should we close our doors forever? Here's that picture. 37 theater companies. How could we work together in new ways to maximize the resources that are available, to provide an array of theater opportunities, and to move towards a more sustainable creative economy? Many boards are asking these questions on their own, but these conversations are inward-focused, independent of the greater arts ecosystem. How can we expand that conversation to cross organizations to encourage an ours versus a mine approach? To look for things we have in common and may share, to feel supported in taking a risk and trying something different. Politically, how can we work together across party lines in an honest discussion of funding for the arts, for education, and for those things that lead to a better quality of life for our community members locally and across the state? What might that look like? I've been honored to have had the opportunity to share these thoughts with you today. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your support of the arts in Madison, for all that you do for this community and the lasting impact of the leadership that you've brought for decades. As Pangloss says at the end of Candide, any questions?
Very nice talk, thank you. Given the increased competition for declining resources in grants and foundation money, have you noticed that theater companies are becoming more cautious about intellectually or politically experimental or intellectually dangerous art in order to not offend potential funders?
It definitely is a much more difficult challenge to select a season when your reliance on ticket sales is significantly higher than it may have been even 2 years ago. People need to come to see the show because you need that earned income to cover your expenses. So when you're looking at shows, you do have to weigh what might be artistically satisfying with what can we sell. And unfortunately, that's the reality where we are. You do, if you have a season, if you have a number of productions, you may balance. So you have 3 shows. You may choose one that you feel will be a really good seller out of the gate and balance that with one that might be more challenging. And then you typically would have the 3rd show be one that you know will perform at maybe a regular level. But it's definitely a concern, especially with reliance on earned income. Yes?
Thank you for that terrific presentation.
Thank
A lot of the people in this room, when they go to New York, they go to the theater, and in London, but they don't go to the theater here in Madison because they think it's sort of amateurish. My experience has been that some of the performances here are so good, they have greater impact than the big theater in New York. The production of Little Night Music,
Oh, thank you.
phenomenal. And Sweeney Todd, I saw it in New York and hated it. I saw it here and loved it.
Thank you.
How would you compare the impact of theater that you can do to the great companies, great Broadway houses in New York or in London?
I think part of the impact is actually, it's an emotional impact, because when you go to theater in Madison, if you're supporting a company that's truly part of the community, you're seeing your friends and your neighbors and your colleagues on stage, and they're telling a story, and you already have that relationship with them because you know them, you see them. Or it may be, it's Sarah Day, it's Jimmy DeVito, it's someone that you are familiar with because you've seen them for years at American Players Theater. You already have that relationship, and when they share themselves and are vulnerable on stage and tell that story, it's so much more meaningful than if you go to see, for me personally, than if you go to see a production where you don't recognize the faces. It can still be a powerful experience, but it's a little bit different when you know that they are part of where you live and who you are. Anyone else? Oh, yes.
We've heard studies before about the economic impact of the arts in general, and I noticed you didn't comment about that directly. Could you comment a little bit about the economic impact of theater in the community in a positive way?
Sure. I think it was about a year and a half ago, there was a study that came out that shared, and correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, I think it was it $17 per person per event attended brought to the Madison economy? $24, there we go. I knew that Mr. Prairie would know that. So it's a huge impact. I personally, while I support the research and support those that make that argument, I'm above the mindset that you don't support the arts because they're contributing to the economy. You support the arts because they're the arts, and because of what they bring to people's lives and bring to your community. It's important to have that information, but if that's why you have skin in the game, your reasoning's a little bit wonky. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm good. Are there any specific programs for at-risk kids or kids that might not be able to afford to get into the programs or theaters, particularly at-risk kids? I think this would be a great creative way to get some real energy and some real excitement into the program.
Most of the youth theater in town is not pay to play, so we don't have some organizations in other communities. If you want to be part of the show, there's a tuition amount, just like if you're going to play soccer or play basketball. In Madison, the House Theater is a free program. CTM does not charge you to be part of their productions. Verona Area Community Theater does fantastic shows with kids from all across Dane County. Oregon Straw Hat Players is a great organization as well. And many companies welcome, depending on the show, young people to be part of their productions. Four Seasons, Madison Savoyards. Most of the organizations do not actually charge for involvement. And I know Madison Youth Choir has an initiative right now where they're actually looking at recruiting and finding ways to support involvement by at-risk students as well. Yes, sir.
When economic times are hard, there's a tendency for charitable giving to go to core issues such as housing and food and shelter. What's your answer to question number 3? During those times, why do the arts matter? Why should people continue giving?
Spirit, heart, connecting with your fellow human beings. It's important to support the social services. It's also more important to support the sense of community and the sense of belonging and being part of something bigger. The sense of telling your story, of sharing other people's stories, empathy, being a better human. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much, everybody.
and a great answer. Thank you all. Good day.